I don't think mine looks as pretty as the one I saw, but
There was distinct layers in there.
Yeah.
They probably took more delicate care to pour. I'm sure it all tastes
it's
the same.
called the memory eraser, the mind eraser, something like that. But we fix this back. Man, I'm forgetting all kinds of shit. I forgot lights.
Oh, that's all right.
Hold on.
We'll get her dialed in.
We can edit.
And I don't know if I'm crooked there or not.
Are you? No, you look pretty good.
Okay.
Actually.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Here we go. It's a shooter, I guess. The
Okay,
guy I saw shot.
Don't choke on the ice.
Don't stop. Don't drink the ice. Here we
Okay.
go.
Cheers.
Cheers. What were we talking about?
What was the name of this?
It was all right. It wasn't as strong as I thought it would be.
I would like to forget the taste of that drink, actually.
Really?
It's close to the Tootsie Roll we had.
Yeah.
Except that was orange juice in there, but
Anytime you get Kahlua involved.
yeah.
I don't know. It wasn't as bad. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but it wasn't as good either. So
It's nice to try new things. Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction into what we were talking about.
yeah.
The ongoing theme joke for the day.
The Mind Eraser, Kahlua vodka and seltzer or club soda.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Tasty.
the worst thing I've drunk.
Tasty
Wasn't the worst thing I've drunk.
in a sort of weird way, but yeah.
All right, so check this out. 100 years ago, people were interviewed or in different various publications or whatever. They tried to predict what would be 100 years from then, which is now.
Okay.
And I didn't want to read it. I wanted to see what it was so we could just kind of bounce off each other off of it.
Yeah.
People thought that women would be uglier.
Well, it's a bit subjective, I would say.
It said that if we keep progressing in the wrong direction as we've been doing, American beauty is bound to decline, and there won't be any good-looking girls to be found 100 years from now.
Well,
I'm not going to say they're easy to find, but
I guess it depends on how much.
what do you consider, beautiful?
Sure, in the eye of the beholder, as they say, right?
Yeah.
Right. We definitely have a lot more cosmetics that help in that.
For sure.
Help in that area. But what's underneath? Hey, it's beauty on the inside.
Yep. I'm trying to see. It's going. Everything's going. We're still going. Okay, good. I'm like, did I forget something? The other one was advanced aging. That people would live to be 150 years old.
Whoa.
I know there's that guy that spends millions of bucks a year to try and reverse aging. They said he's like he's in his 40s and he does a blood thing with his son's blood or something, the cells, and he's knocked like 5 years off or something. I mean, it's a little crazy, but
Do they judge that by the length of the telomeres?
I don't
hear.
know.
Yeah, there's the markers of aging they're supposed to.
The quote here is that a famous American doctor has suggested that we should all be immortal. That when we are free from the ravages of germs.
Think about that though. If people lived another, let's say the average age is 80 now, right? I mean, give or take, depending on where you live, all that stuff. Let's just say 80. Probably in the 70s, but let's say 80. Let's say they live to be 130, 50 more years. How many more people would be, and how much more
Definitely. Yeah.
polluted,
Right.
that much more garbage, that much more all that stuff, and use of resources, right? So I don't know that that's such a good idea. And I don't know. I guess if you were alive and you felt at 100 like you did when you're 50 or 60, that'd be worth it. But if your last 30 or 40 years are just you're 80 and everything hurts, and now you're 110 and everything hurts even worse,
Yeah.
and now you're 130.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing.
I think maybe with the advances in medicine and stuff, obviously we're going to live longer.
Yeah.
And then there is all those other things that could come from that. Like you said, like you're going to need to use up more resources. You're gonna
Overpopulation.
make more waste.
Sure.
Where are you going to live? Is there going to be, like you said, more pain, less mobility? I don't know.
If that happened 100 years ago, that people started living, what would the population be now? 12 billion, 15 billion, you know?
Yeah. So that was Sir Ronald Ross, a British doctor who received the 1902 Nobel Prize in Medicine for his studies in malaria. That's what he said, that if we can eradicate germs, that we could be immortal.
It makes sense.
But then you better be neutered.
Why?
But then you better be neutered so you can't have the population explode if you're living forever.
There's another good question on there. So if you extend the natural life of somebody, let's say it is 150 years, does that increase your age of fertility? You know, are women having babies when they're 70 and 80 years old?
Or are men getting women pregnant
Yeah.
at 70s?
Yeah, right. I mean, or does it just mean you live longer and the worst part of your years when you're decrepit and old and hurt is just extended?
Yeah.
You're on medication for an extra 50 years.
The next one was that there would be a rise of superpowers, and it would be this was H.G. Wells, who wrote The Time Machine and The War of the Worlds and The Invisible Man. He spoke at a dinner, and he said that in 100 years, there will not be numerous nations, but only 3 great masses of people: the United States of America, the United States of Europe, and China.
You know what?
I mean, it's interesting because it kind of is like that, but I don't know that it would just be 3. I guess you could say 3 that like make all the rules, make all the money, play all the games, have all the power.
But yeah, what is there 100?
What are we considering at that time versus now? Europe, you know, because the boundaries were different. So we could think because of the Cold War, we could say Russia, but like he's thinking all of that.
Right.
Over there.
Was there like 190 some countries? If I'm sure I'm off on that, but around there.
Yeah.
Individual countries to say that those could be absorbed by the biggest power in that area. But little side note, or I guess, so I had several people do the Alexa thing, right? Where they say, you know, something about the future of the United States. And I had a customer of mine just the other day do it in front of me, and asked Alexa about the United States, and her answer was February 20th, 2031. The United States no longer exists as the United States.
Really?
It's not called the United States. And then they ask why, the follow-up question. And they said it's because of a merger with Canada. So, and then this was a while ago. And then we just see the president-elect, Donald Trump, talk about absorbing Canada as the 51st state, which kind of the 51st state's already Puerto Rico.
Right,
but yeah.
Wow.
So it's just
it's interesting.
Yeah.
They were talking about that
and I heard
100
this,
years ago.
and I heard that 6 months ago about Alexa giving that answer as to the future of the United States. Yeah.
The next part was kind of goes with that one. Somebody said that we would have a global government, and it says here, it was written in
New
a book,
World Order.
written in a book, that the earth would be under one government, one language. One language would be written and understood, or even spoken all over the globe. There would still be different races, perhaps allied nations, but travel and commerce would be free and unfettered, and calamities would be alleviated and dangers met by the united forces of all mankind. That's a pretty hopeful outlook.
Yeah, because I would say under that there would be, 8 billion people. There would be 7 billion, 990,000 slaves, and there would be 10,000 people at the top that ruled the whole entire world, right?
Check,
so that's it.
Not going to happen.
Very optimistic outlook on that.
It
situation.
goes on to say some other things. These are all quotes. So it says, the advances of medicine and surgery will have been such that most of the ailments and limitations of old age will be eliminated.
Be nice.
Life will be prolonged at its maximum of efficiency until death comes like sunset and is met without pain and without reluctance. There will be no death from disease, and almost any sort of injury will be curable. I mean, there's been a lot of advancements in the last 100 years to kind of make some of this right. Like, we talk about limitations of old age. Yeah, there's people able to exercise, lift weights, do stuff well into their 70s, 80s, 90s sometimes. I used to run a lot. There was a guy that would run marathons in his 90s. Ailments being eliminated. I think we've come a long way in medicine for ailments, because stuff that would ail an ailment.
Still no cure for cancer.
Right. Well, if you smoke this one herb, but it said the one thing that it said until death comes like sunset and is met without pain and without reluctance.
I don't know how you can time your death, or
I kind of see that in a way being like when they give somebody end of life things to comfort them, and like a drug.
Metaphorical, probably.
Exactly.
More
in
more
the physical,
reality,
if they give you something to keep you calm and drugged out of your mind until you pass.
Sure.
Then you'll be looking at the sunset, all right.
Mm-hmm.
But
if there truly was no disease that you died from, and it was either an accidental death or just your parts wore out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes on to say new fabrics will no doubt be invented, which they have. We got like Kevlar and stuff like that.
Not all of them great.
Combining the warmth of fur with the softness and flexibility of silk and the strength of linen. So I guess somewhat.
And keep in mind, as we're saying this is what 1924, right?
Yep.
Is that what we're saying?
Pretty
100
much,
years ago.
Some of it was
within
a little before that. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So 1924 is in the world. Yeah, for sure.
Said dress will be light so that half a dozen changes of a costume could be carried in a handbag. Yeah, I guess like a carry-on,
Mm-hmm.
And will be designed so that each change will involve no more inconvenience than does the removal of a raincoat.
Well, you also have to think.
Still got to put your arms in and out of something.
What were they wearing back then?
17-piece suits.
and the ladies
zoot suits.
And the ladies had multiple layers of gowns and corsets, and it took hours to get ready.
This one's hilarious. You're gonna love this. A world or countrywide alarm clock. So everybody gets up at the same time. I'm like, wait a minute, we have time zones.
Yeah, it's not the same time.
So it says here, a very useful service will be the radio alarm clock. Signals will be sent out at frequent intervals on different wavelengths between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. every morning, and setting the alarm clock to catch the signal at the desired time will avoid any risk of oversleeping.
Okay.
House and public clocks and even watches will be synchronized by signals sent several times a day, and we shall then know the right time instead of finding a variation of minutes all over a small city. Which, wow. We were having this discussion just this weekend driving home through different time zones.
Okay.
We were in the Eastern time zone heading back into the Central time zone. On our car, this is our first car that did this. It changed the time.
Wow.
So it was always on the right
where
time.
You are.
But it was always on the right time, right? Well, we're using the navigation, and the navigation will give you an approximate arrival time, right? So
in the time zone you're going to.
This is where I was wrong with that, though. I'm coming home, and I'm saying, oh, it's an hour ahead. We won't be home at 9. We'll be home at 8. No. It was giving you the right time in your time zone as the approximate arrival.
Oh.
So when we were heading into Eastern, It was right. 9 o'clock was 9 o'clock, but coming home, 10 o'clock was 9 o'clock, and it was already doing the math, and I didn't catch it until they kind of overlapped when I kind of got some good time. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait a minute. That is our time. We are going to be home later than we thought. Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, but that's what the guy was saying. Like your watches, if you have a digital watch or like the Apple watches, all that shit sync to your phone. Phones. I haven't seen anything about phones yet to say because we don't even have a home phone anymore.
Right. Well,
this guy's kind of dead on.
Well, but along with that prediction there, so yes, you could pick your own time to wake up based on that. If you wanted to wake up at 7:30, you just tune to that specific frequency, and then you get that tone.
Channel 7.
Right. And also, I mean, the watch or clock technology back then was, I wouldn't say so primitive, but probably everything was wind.
Yeah.
You had to wind it all.
Springs.
You weren't getting battery or probably not even plug-in clocks at that time. Electric clocks, probably all winding by gear. Now you don't have to worry about what time you're on. Boom, you pick up a device and everything.
It just updates.
Very interesting. Yeah.
It's close.
Yeah.
That was a good one. So far, other than obviously advances in medicine, but that one seems to be the closest. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Women in science. It's now this is a quote. Women, owing to their accelerated development, will compete on equal terms with men in all branches of scientific research, resulting in faster progressive developments for health, comfort, and speed of thought and life. Many of the new discoveries of the future will doubtless be entirely due to the sex at present referred to as fair, a term they will scorn in the days of real equality. Wow, that's pretty close.
Yeah.
That's pretty close.
Now, obviously, there's some misogyny, even saying that women weren't.
Exactly.
But it was the truth of the thing that because, not that they weren't smart enough back then, they were just barriers and held back and weren't allowed the opportunity.
Yeah.
But
big time gatekeepers.
But absolutely,
This was a guy saying at some point they'll be on the even playing field.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The airport of the future.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Let me read this here. The air traveler will walk into a comfortable and well-appointed waiting room in the center of a city. An elevator will take him up to the roof, where he will step directly into a roomy and really comfortable airplane cabin. There will be no bumping over a hilly airdrome, but the machine mounted on a turntable. The plane will be shot off into the air by catapults and travel through space over 300 miles an hour. I mean, that would be kind of nice.
Okay. So is this...
Like you'd be in the city.
Does this say that it was 1924? Because this is a little more important. 1924
this was 100 years ago.
Okay,
so yeah.
Okay. So this is 16 years after... No, probably a little longer than that. I'm thinking 1908, but it's probably... I get my facts wrong, but the Wright brothers, right, our first recorded flight where they're just a glider.
I definitely think by the mid to late 20s they were doing more.
Yeah, and biplanes back then, but I don't know if there was commercial flights at that point.
I would think
flying
I would
passengers.
think that there were flights delivering some things maybe by then already, but probably short trips. But it's kind of funny that it said in the center of the city. You'd basically take the elevator to the roof of your favorite office building or whatever it is,
But now they just have a ramp that takes you to the
slingshot you.
But
at 300, that's slow now.
They're a bit off on the takeoff method.
That's funny.
And you don't really need to go into what we consider space, but you are in the air. So, but yeah, I would a commercial flight about 500 miles an hour, something like that. I think on average, yeah.
They were talking about the population, so there's several here. The first is we would face a food shortage in 100 years.
Depending on where you are, that's probably still the case.
They also predicted that the United States population would reach 200 million by 2025.
Well, they underestimated it.
At the time of this writing, it was at 345 million, give or take. So in 1925, it was 115 million already.
Okay.
Damn.
Okay. So 100 years later, it tripled. Yeah.
And they said that new sources of food would need to be found in order to feed all of those mouths.
Well, maybe not new source. Well, I guess
Well,
a new
he was
source
saying that
with advanced agriculture practices, monocrop.
this particular guy was saying that the new food supply must either be found in the tropics or provided by processes for making artificial food from organic substances.
Well, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
They've refined
Totally.
grain and all kinds of cereal and yeah.
It would not be practical unless the cost of the chemical process was much cheaper than they are at the present time, which they must have already been trying stuff. Then it says, he would be relieved to know that modern grocery stores are stocked with tropical fruits, but lots of processed food. So he was kind of right.
He wants the processed food?
Well, he just said that you'd have to have some sort of different
well, look at your
way of making food.
Your frozen TV dinner, right?
You take an organic product, like a potato, you make it into a powder, and then you can take that powder and make one potato spread across 50 other things, but those 50 other things
That's corn.
It could be a jelly, it could be a bread, whatever. Same thing with corn.
The corn's ubiquitous.
You can stretch
in everything.
You can just stretch the one little thing,
Yep. Yeah, I think that one's pretty accurate.
They move on to say New York in 2025 would be the grandeur of the future. That Manhattan would be this futuristic city. Let's see. They were talking about the probability of the skyline in the year 2025. They predicted that 21st century skyscrapers would be double the 792-foot, 60-story Woolworth building. So they were talking about 1,500, 1,600 roughly foot buildings, which is close. Somewhere around there.
Sure.
Then it says here, the sky over New York would be darkened with airplanes, airships, and other flying devices. Commuters would travel at least 100 miles to the city via compact and inexpensive air flivvers. Also, New York would also offer local subways as well as long-distance subways. I know there's some talk about Elon Musk wanting to do
high-speed rail,
underground, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. When we were in Europe last year, we were on a high-speed. They do tons of trains. Trains have been around. Their 100 years have been trains for public commuting and stuff. And we got on one that went like 22 or 24 miles in like 8 minutes. I mean, this thing was moving. It took off, so. You didn't feel like this big burst of speed.
Right.
But after a while, you kind of looked out and were like, damn, we're trucking. Mm-hmm. We are moving. It was like 165 miles an hour.
Wow.
And then it's slowing down.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, it's slowing down. It's like, whoa. That's kind of happened. I mean, you have bullet trains in Japan and stuff like that.
Right.
Let's see. I don't know about the skies being darkened with airplanes and airships.
Not
and
quite that many.
Flying devices. Well, there's the drones.
Yeah, there's
not
quite
drones.
That much traffic that it darkens the skies.
He knew about the drones, the air flivvers.
Unless you're talking about the contrails and the chemtrails.
I mean, these dudes had some good ideas. Finally, he expected the Big Apple to have triple and quadruple decked streets to accommodate heavy traffic. I mean, they kind of do. We have, like in Chicago, you have upper Wacker, lower Wacker. Mm-hmm. A lot of the bridges.
The subway is kind
underneath.
of another level, maybe not
you
for
had,
driving traffic, but foot traffic.
Boston had the Big Dig, so they have the huge highway system going under the city. So it's just, it's like people have these ideas already and can almost plan it out. They just don't have the technology or the machinery to accomplish it. Just like filmmakers in the 60s had these whacked out crazy ideas and they just couldn't get it on film.
Right.
It would be a drawing.
Yep.
Because they couldn't bring it to life. And now you can use computers and make a real person standing there who's not even there. Or you can wear a green suit with balls all over the thing.
Yep,
that are
motion
like
capture.
Motion
right.
capture, and then have it look like you're a beast or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, the effects and the makeup artists back then had all the ideas, but they were limited by what they had available. Sure.
They also talked about some sort of moving sidewalk.
Airports.
And then it says these would be above the motor vehicle street level and be arranged inside of arcades within buildings themselves, taking you to different buildings.
Yeah, airport.
So far off.
I can't imagine being exposed to the elements would last very long.
So the streets were actually, this is what he said, the streets would actually be used for motor trucks and delivery vehicles. The lighter vehicles, like pleasure cars, would be on a different level, higher up.
To kind of do that, try to direct traffic a bit with truck routes and non-truck routes now, but
when I think about because I've been to Chicago a million times, and they have the trains, the L's and everything. They're above the street.
Sure.
And they do have a little bit of subway stuff.
Or they have the express lanes where they're not supposed to be truck traffic, but it is on the same parallel plane, just different lanes designated, so it's close. Definitely thinking in that direction.
He was saying that there would also be enclosed sidewalks, so there'd be even different levels of sidewalks. So an overhead sidewalk would be enclosed as an insurance against rain and snow.
Well, it doesn't seem...
Better display facilities for stores, it says.
It doesn't seem like any certain location can even keep up on the road repairs with the roads we have. Can you imagine having 2 or 3 different layers for different...
What are you going to make them out of? So an Armenian historian predicted that San Francisco would be the world's greatest city by 2025. As Asian countries gain clout, the Pacific Ocean would overtake the Atlantic Ocean as the great commercial sea. And it says that New York would play second fiddle to San Francisco and Oakland, California, because that would be a major port. He said, she will be the greatest port of the greatest sea. She will be in direct communication with 2/3 of the world's population. He guessed at this time that the Bay Area would boast a population of at least 15 million by 2025. And it says right now it's actually half of that, 7.7. Probably because it's so goddamn expensive.
There you go.
We went there sightseeing and stuff a few years ago. They told us average rent in the city limits was $4,200 a month. And that most people that worked there lived no less than 45 minutes away.
Yeah, because they can't afford to.
It's fucking ridiculous.
Can't afford
Dudes
to
making $200,000 and $300,000 a year, couldn't afford to rent, had to have roommates.
Barely getting by.
The fuck is all that?
Yeah. Well, it's all relative. I've had this discussion with my son many times. So we could all agree, right? Tomorrow, we wake up tomorrow, 7 a.m., everything goes back to, say, 1950s pricing. It doesn't matter. Everybody agrees that whatever job you're doing, you would get paid that amount for the typical average, and the cost of goods would all go back. Nothing would change.
Right.
We would all be, your dollar value of what you make and what you can afford wouldn't change because everything would go back down. We could also do the same thing, saying let's elevate it like 10 times, right? Everybody's making $150, $200 an hour for the average blue collar, but a loaf of bread's $12.
Right.
It's all relative.
The only thing that I saw as a plausible solution to any kind of what's the word I want to use? Like economy, just a very general term. I'm not being specific at all. Just in very general terms. One time I did research paper when I went back to school. We did this research project, and in wartime, you'll have oil companies. They have to send the oil to the refineries. The refineries are mainly in safer places, so they got to. Let's just say it's just the United States for this. What I'm going to say, they got to bring the oil to the United States and refine it, put it back in a ship, take it back to whoever's having the issue. And this is not, I'm not making this up. They were selling gas 25 cents a gallon back to partners during wartime in the Gulf during the early 90s with the Gulf War and stuff. So if you can sell that for $0.25 a gallon at that time, and you just say, okay, so if they can sell it for $0.25 a gallon, and they're doing this wartime thing, obviously they're going to kick back somewhere in this. Something's going to come of this to help them, right? So let's say you got your middlemen that distribute it. They're going to add $0.25. Your guys at the pump are going to add $0.25, and your taxes are going to add $0.25. So let's just say we got gas back to $1.25 a gallon, or even $2 a gallon. All right, and you said we'll just drop it in 50s. 50 cents for taxes, 50 cents back to the retailer, 50 cents back to the refinery, 50 cents back to the oil company, 50 cents back to a fund of some sort for the government to divvy up between roads, projects, their own war chest, whatever. And I was like, to me, that is one of the only things I could see helping the economy, simply because you would say more people would be driving because they can afford it, because I got 5 on it. I can put more gas in the tank for that 5, you know?
Yep.
But I can go somewhere to another town, see a concert, stay in a hotel, eat at a local shop. Even though their prices might be high of those things, I can get there. I can go do it. I'll be more apt to travel because gas is cheap. But I feel like that's a 20-year-old argument now, because the way things have changed, everybody's so stay at home. You know, like, look what we're doing right now. In a way, we're talking to the world from a room in a house.
Right.
Okay. We don't have to travel. We don't need to.
Right.
It's like, I'm not saying the battery cars are the answer. I'm just saying, like, I'm not driving as much as I used to. 20 years ago. That would have been great. Drop gas to $1 a gallon, and I'll drive to Colorado, and I'll buy this, and I'll go over here and pick up this TV and do all this because I got more money. Because some people for a long time were playing this game with, you know, they got to work, they got a truck. It's $200 in the tank to fill it for 3 days, or pay this bill and eat. You know, so if I got $2 gas and I can fill the truck and get a burger, maybe I'll take that road trip. Maybe I'll travel. But I don't feel like that's a good argument in 2025. Maybe in 2005 or 1995, but not now, because I feel like we're driving less. I feel like we're staying home more. We're doing more on the internet. We're doing more on, you know, social media, ordering stuff.
The entertainment is so much closer at your fingertips.
We don't have to drive.
Don't have to go. Yeah,
But I still think, like, yeah, if gas was $1 a gallon, I'm lowering my price. But if gas was $1 a gallon, like, hell yeah, I'll drive. But then again, I'm like, I'm kind of lazy. I'm older now. Get me in a plane. Get me there quick.
Yeah. Right.
But I often thought that could possibly be like the answer to the economic woes or whatever. Like, you're spreading it around more because people can get around more. But it goes back to what you're saying. You can lower this, and let's just say your pay goes down to match it, and you can still afford it. It's at everything's at the same level.
Yeah.
The bread's $1, the bread's $12. You're making $10, you're making $30.
Minimum wage is $25 an hour.
Yeah, and it will be something.
But your Happy Meal is going to be $25 an hour.
Yeah.
Or $25, you know. Right. I mean,
and at some point that's going to happen.
That's inflation. That's everything else,
gonna
right?
Just follow. So,
right.
Yeah.
So we could all agree tomorrow to go back to whatever it was in 1950, the prices, and nothing would change. You could still afford what you can afford. Everything, you know, your pay, you know, your $2 an hour that you thought was killer because you're working at the mill for $2 or $3 or $4 an hour, and that was great because everything was
$40 a week.
You know, a loaf of bread was 5 cents,
right? Or
a gallon of gas was 10 cents, or you know, and it was great.
Yeah,
but it's all relative.
If you could take $1,000 back to those days, what would you buy? And I saw that today. A guy said, if I could go back to 1980 with $1,000 and buy a bunch of Star Wars toys, I could come back and retire.
I would buy stock in Amazon.
Yeah.
Or, you know, something like that.
If you had a little car or something that would take you to specific moments, you'd be like, okay, Forrest Gump, Apple, Apple stocks, Amazon stocks.
Buy $100 of all the top, you know, stocks, and I'm sure that'd be worth tens of millions of dollars now. So
buy a basketball team for $30,000.
right.
So it moves on here when they kind of went back about the food because they were saying that. Oh, I'm sorry. A substitute for sleep.
Tell me more.
Advances in medicine, they would find, and it would have its chief ingredient would probably be acid sodium phosphate. Chemistry would be used to produce synthetic foods, making them chiefly out of nitrogen from the atmosphere. It's like jumping two things here.
Okay.
That food one went with the other one, sorry. But the sleep thing, you wouldn't sleep. You would take a pill basically and stay awake. Well, isn't that meth?
I think so. I think so. Some of those chemicals, the uppers, but unless they could replicate the regenerative effects that sleep helps,
Right.
restore your body
Right.
and re-energize your body, and that's when your body needs the rest. So unless you could replicate that,
My wife busts my balls all the time because when I hit the couch with her and we're watching TV, and it's like 6:30, 8 o'clock, somewhere in there, I'll fall asleep and she'll say, and I was like, well, you weren't talking to me. I was just kind of bored in the moment, and I just zonked out for just a few minutes,
Yeah.
She gets on me. But I'm like, there is something sort of regenerative in a really fast way with just quick naps. Like 15 minutes, man, I'll be up the rest of the night.
Mm-hmm. The cat nap.
Yeah, I'll be up the rest of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a good one. They predicted that people would use a pocket-sized apparatus for communications to both see and hear each other without being in the same room. Wow.
Dead on.
Wow.
Right there. Right there. The cell phone predicted 100 years ago.
Wow. Here's a good one. This was the next one. There would be world peace, a common world currency, and universal free trade.
More of that new
Alrighty
world
then.
order.
Alrighty then.
Yeah.
There was, I guess, 100 years ago. So we're in the 20s, right? So that was after World War One. There'd probably be a lot of fear of like somebody taking over, and maybe you'd want your country to be in charge. I don't know where that would come from, but it seems like that's kind of a theme there.
It depends on who is in charge of that new world order, that one world government.
Yeah.
Depends on if it's good or bad.
Here's a guy. He made a few of them. So there's 3 of them, and the first one is that the books of 2025 will probably be printed on nickel leaves. Nickel leaves. So light and thin that a single volume will contain 30,000 pages, and the pages will be more flexible and durable than paper. So would that be like your those little reader pads, the little tablet,
that's what I was
tablets,
just thinking.
kind of?
I've never had one. Never actually seen the flexible, the foldable.
I've seen the foldable
ones.
screens,
Mm-hmm.
but I've seen the readers that are they look like paper,
Mm-hmm.
and you just swipe to the next page and it looks like a book. I don't know.
Yeah.
He goes on to say that the work of the house will be reduced to a negligible quantity by 100 electrical devices, not a few of which are in use today, from opening the door to removing a meal to cleaning the boots and automatic cooking of a 6-course dinner. He's pretty close because I got a robot vacuum that we use daily.
Some of those things definitely
The
are.
microwave can take care of the meals.
Yeah.
Even like a pressure cooker that has the what do you call it? The air fryer, attachment, that type of stuff.
Ask a stay-home mom or dad of 3 or 4 kids how much housework there is today.
Right, negligible, nothing. There's 100 electrical devices that'll take care of that.
It's all taken care of. It.
'Cause that's
no
free,
problem.
right?
But if you do think the washer and dryer, it takes up the work of. I mean, you still got to load it, you still got to fold it, and take it out. Right?
Yeah.
But if you had to do it by hand and hang them on a clothesline and all that stuff, the time's reduced. So some of that is definitely true, but I don't think it's negligible.
His third prediction was 90. The last one the guy said was, after the books, he said In the world of manufacturing, the change will be just as revolutionary. A score of machines, one will then suffice. He says, so a century on, the machine would put cloth, thread, buttons, and so on into one end of a machine, and from the other end draw suits, complete to the last stitch and ready, folded for delivery. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. It certainly doesn't happen. You still have to manufacture it all now, but the process is sped up. But you just dump all the material in one end, and out pops the other end, ready to go.
The next one, this is a new one here. It says, the end of poverty. Poverty would be abolished by 2025 if society made a concerted effort. Of course.
Well, again, not to sound too callous, but everybody cannot make the same amount of money. I mean,
yeah.
If you had the people that were in charge also doing that, that would be great, but they wouldn't. You could have everybody, communism underneath you making the same amount.
It's tough, like when you see somebody asking for change, like holding up the cardboard sign, and I want to say a great percentage of them, it's not for a meal. Mm-hmm. It's not for a kid at home. It's for nefarious reasons. So that's tough to see that in your, you're in this country where you have the freedom to choose and work and do things for yourself, have your own business, and it's all tough. And we can all suffer that same fate. It's just tough to imagine yourself when you're not in that position to be in that position.
Sure.
How in the heck did that happen?
But in reality, the person that makes $20 an hour has value in their money because somebody makes $12 an hour. Yeah. And somebody that makes $30 an hour has value in their money because somebody makes $20 an hour, and so on up the scale. Right. If everybody made the same amount of money for every job, some jobs are harder and tougher, but as far as pulling everybody out of poverty, I think that would be a great thing, that nobody has to worry about their next meal or keeping the lights on.
We got, it's like with the guy taking out the head of the healthcare company, it's like talking about the wealth thing. It does shine a spotlight on the fact that some of these executives, and I don't mean to point it at this guy, but it's just an example. It's like, you're walking away with a $45 million golden parachute just to leave the company or whatever. But meanwhile, you got like a $25 million salary, while the people that are in the trenches in your company eating all the shit are making $35,000 a year, $50,000 a year, maybe $100,000 a year, and then from there up, whatever. Sure. But it's like, I don't know whatever made it get to that weird point where there's this crazy
divide,
jump in scale to like, come run our company for 2 years and we'll let you go with $10 million in stocks and a $50 million bonus. And it's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's just really crazy. I'm not saying like they're not worth something. And even if it is more than me, because they have a greater role, whatever, I don't know that it's worth, $50 million.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. If you have 1,000 times more income than the next, the average person of that company, certainly, the people that either start the company, invested their time and effort, all that stuff into it, or run it, sure, they definitely deserve a bigger piece of that pie. But the discrepancy.
You bring
there
in a guy into a company
broader.
That makes $1 billion a year, and you hand him a $10 million a year salary, and all he does is makes a couple statements and hangs out and plays golf, whatever it is. I don't know that he's worth $10 million for that.
Sure.
Maybe one or two. 10 plus all these other things that add to that. It's something. Because then you think, well, what's he doing with all that? Why don't he help out some people? I don't know. I don't know the answer there. we could have obviously all helped some people, but it's like sometimes you just don't know who to trust. You see these people with these signs, and you just like, I can't do it, man. And other times I see people pull up to every one of them, hand them a few bucks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'll take somebody in a time of need that wants. I need something for food. I'll take you inside and buy you something. You want to get some groceries? I'll take you in for a bag of groceries. I've paid for people's groceries that I've seen having troubles before. I don't want anything in return. I just think it's the humane thing to do, like help my fellow mankind out.
I've actually had somebody give me. They didn't, say anything, but gave me a dirty look when they were holding up a sign for money. And I was going to the grocery store anyway, so I bought some apples and bananas and stuff like that could wouldn't be too perishable immediedely. And handed that to them, and they just, they were dissatisfied.
That was that one person that wasn't really telling the truth.
I just thought, if you're hungry, here's some food. I would give you,
that wasn't the sign they were holding up wasn't what they wanted that money for.
Yeah.
It says here, what are we looking at? Knee slappers. Okay, so this is from 1925. Horse-drawn vehicles are fast disappearing from our streets, but jackass-driven automobiles will still be with us 100 years from now.
Well,
boy, that is the most true one of them all.
I'm sure he means that in a different way. The animal, the donkey-driven one, but
I don't know. I'm thinking he's calling the drivers the jackasses.
Well, couldn't be truer.
The daily and hourly progress of madness and folly and wickedness will at least make a fine narrative in history, but probably the people of the future will have so many follies of their own that they will not care greatly for ours in 2025. So people today won't care about 100 years ago because of the things we're into. I mean, I have a lot of hobbies, and there could be some truth to that, because I don't think in 1925 there was a lot of room in the day for expendable income to just have collections of things and all these just things,
Yeah, I think life was in general way harder. You didn't have the luxury of time to sit around and be bored. You were fighting for your life and existence.
Also hit on something you said earlier when I talked about lowering the price of gas. Everybody back then went to an event. They put on their suit. They went to watch the pro wrestlers. They went to watch the boxing matches. They went to the circus, to the fairs. They had to put on airs and go.
Yep.
Whereas now, I'll stay home and watch it live.
I got my pajamas on.
I'll watch the live stream with
I'm on the couch and watching it.
Cup of coffee and a handful of gummies or something,
But I think there's been a movement, at least from my perception, recently, of trying to get back, maybe not that far, but getting back to a less complicated, less busy life. Get back to a little more the homestead sort of thing, where there's a bit more struggle in everyday life, but a much simpler way of life.
I've met quite a few homesteaders through YouTube stuff, and great people, and that's really all it comes down to. Just a simpler time, simpler thing. I think trying to rely on themselves a little more.
Comes down to that control, like you're in control of your life and your destiny, rather than trying to, just the chaos of a busy life.
Also trying to sort of reiterate the point of like family. We're going to do this together. We're going to grow our own certain things. Like, we're going to go buy stuff, but we're also going to make our own breads and soups and canned vegetables. I mean, stuff that's kind of like a lost art that like probably our parents probably did more. Like I can remember my mom every year taking a certain harvest of something, because like where we're at in the country, you get a harvest once a year, and there's some places in the country that can get a harvest a couple of times a year.
Right.
So here it was like a real thing to get a certain vegetable or fruit right at the right time, do a certain process, make jelly, make apple butter, apple sauce, can it. You can it in a certain way that seals it so you can keep it in storage. And then, 3 months later, somebody's saying, go get me a can of whatever out of the cellar or something,
Right.
it's kind of a lost art
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't tell you how the process works if I had to, but
Yeah.
it's a very survivalist thing.
I've done a bit of canning this year.
It's a very survivalist thing that I think people should know and come to appreciate.
Well, I think the more you rely on convenience, that can be taken away, and we've seen that, with the COVID or anything.
Yeah.
It's if there's a disruption in that, and you come to rely on it, and you don't have your own knowledge to fall back on, you're stuck. So I think people are tending to go back to knowing how to take care of themselves.
Our Food Network runs at such a clip with so many people and such a mass of people reaching their hands into it with food so fast that people don't realize, like, if there was a complete shutdown, just say the power went off on everything. I think it's dry foods are like 8 days, meats are like 5 days, frozen foods are like 3 days. That's
you mean the supply chain?
The supply chain's screwed
is
because
done.
they can't get it. They can't get it to you because there's no way to get it to you because the processed foods, the frozen foods, the way that they prepare foods, it would all stop.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
You can go find it. I mean,
You're saying the grid goes down because of some event for a couple of weeks or a month?
If there was an event that shut it down to where they could not get it delivered, like an EMP pulse. Let's just say it's a natural calamity from the sun, and it's an EMP pulse that just kills electronics for a while. That's going to take months to get things back. Within, say, the 6 months that it would take to get back, you're going to see probably 35 to 50% of the population gone.
Oh yeah.
Because of starvation.
Oh yeah.
People don't realize
it
that.
would not take that long for chaos to erupt.
No.
It would.
Days.
Because even if people have what they need in the immediate, for the next 5-10 days, they're thinking beyond that. And how do I get enough to make sure I got enough for 30 days? And then chaos erupts. Right. And whoever has a 100-day supply, well, we got to get some of that. Right?
That's the people I call. That when people talk about zombies, that's what I say a zombie is. The zombie is the person that wants your shit. The zombie is the one that's going to break through the wall. Or
we can go on a whole tangent of that, but if you have a supply and no way to protect it, then you've just gathered supply for somebody that can come take it.
You just got it ready. Let's see here. They said that comedy would be dead in 100 years. There would be nothing left to laugh about. That everything would be cleared up, straightened up. Everything would be great. Yeah. There would be no bow-legged girls in short skirts or skinny-shanked men in golf togs. Because every ailment would be taken care of, right?
Bow-legged
girls. It said that in a century... This is a quote. Those who fear that the world will be overpopulated a century hence may underestimate the capacity of moonshine. They are now...
Meaning you're just not worried if you got a neighbor so close to you?
If you drink enough, you'll be fine. They are now celebrating the 100th anniversary of the invention of the detachable collar. Judging from the popularity of divorce 100 years from now, so in 2025, they will be celebrating the invention of the detachable marriage yoke. Okay. Alrighty then.
Well, divorce is way more common now. That's for sure.
They said we would have our first woman president. They said...
Almost.
Don't you feel your
couple
home
times
life would
almost
be ruined? My only... This was a joke they put in a newspaper. My only regret is that I have but one wife to give to my country. Oh my gosh. And it says, finally, an 8th grade pupil at a school in Wisconsin wrote a poem for a 1925 class assignment where they asked about the future. So the poem was titled, The World in 2025. How will the world look a century from now? I have seen it in crystallized glass. The marvelous wonders which men will perform in 100 years to pass. The radio then will be nothing but play. The movies will cease to exist. If people could see things a century from now, they'd lament at the joys they had missed. In a century hence, the airplanes and such will be had by the poorest of beings. Science will scorn them as we scorn the chase and instead invent wonderful things. The folks in a century will know what's on Mars. They'll send messages up to the moon. The cars of today will be laughed at by them. They'll make fun of our soaring balloons. There will be wonderful machines, tonics, and herbs, which will cure almost any disease. There will be wonder foods and beverages, too, which will outdo our coffees and teas. A century from now, the hard-working wife will have nothing to do but rest, for her work will be done in a few minutes' time if simply a button is pressed. The men in the factories won't have much to do. They will just superintend their machine. When they think of men laboring as some do today, they will wonder why we were so green. This is all I can see in my crystallized glass of the old world in 100 years, but I hope I'm not living a century from now, for my dullness would move me to tears.
Yeah, that's good. That's a nice poem there. Some of that rings true in a way, but
the women's work. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Well, as we touched on, I mean, there are advances that do, like the dishwasher, right? So you don't have to hand wash everything.
You don't have to marry one anymore.
Right. you load it and you push the button and then you take them out. But all the work's not done, obviously. Right. Yeah.
I think
that's a pretty interesting list.
So if we're gonna say 100 years from now,
yeah. What's your predictions for the world 100 years from now? In 2125.
Gosh. So if we lived, we'd be in our 150 some odd years. We'd be saying, back in my day. I think there's definitely going to be a leap at some point, and it's going to be faster than expected. It's not going to be in the next 100 years. It's not going to be in the next 50. It's going to be like in the next 10 to 15. There's going to be huge advances in knowledge, in ways to get knowledge. It will be like
the Neuralink.
It'll be kind of like that, but it'd be like the internet times 10. Like there'll be some way to like when you say the thing about Alexa, it'll just be a thing that it can be in your phone, in a ring. It'll be like this advancement where I think microprocessors and things like that.
I think it'll be integrated.
It could be integrated into your head, but if you didn't want that, you could put it on your glasses or, you wouldn't necessarily have to get the injection that had the little chip or whatever that would talk to you. But it could be something where, we rely on all these devices. We have the smartphones, we have the tablet, the computer, the watch. It'll be where things are probably more like what we've seen in some movies where it would be, it's in the air. You're just doing like, I want to type, boom, 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 you're typing. Or you're just telling dictation.
What was that Minority Report?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's like, like when we were kids, we had to do exercises on handwriting. So there was an expectation that you not only knew the language, you knew how to read the language, but you knew how to write it in both standard and cursive.
Yep.
And now it doesn't seem to be, like that'll be a lost art. It won't be paper and pens anymore. It'll be a lot more spoken, but it'll be a lot more thought. Or like you said, maybe the Neuralink, they'll figure out instead of people putting it inside their head, it's just like something they could put on their head, like a headband. Like I said, the glasses thing or something you could just put on. You say, I don't want to have the surgery, but I'll wear the little implant so at my job I can do my job. And then the phone rings and it's in your head. Nobody else hears it but you, and you just kind of tap your head or tap the thing on your wrist. Socialist Inc., can I help you? Whatever. And yes, Mr. Putin, we'll put that right through. Whatever. And it'll be like an advanced something with information, because information is the currency. That's the only reason I think we're having these debates about, not you and me, but just in general, we're having these debates about the TikTok and China and information, things like that. It's like they gain nothing from having information on me, but they gain everything from having information on me because they can track my habits and my spending and things I like and this and that, and then that's the information is the currency. Well, we can make that too and slide that down the pipeline and feed it to you. Or there was this show that I can't remember the name of the show, is where they put it together talking about the algorithm, and the algorithm's figuring out what you like, what to show you on your phone or your device, or when you click on the TV. Like those things won't be normalized at all. Like TV entertainment, you click on the TV when we were kids, you had your channels. You went to different channels to see different shows. Now it's gotten to a point where the apps have become the regular channels, and it's going to take another leap with all of that too, because those are going to be tuned into you through your implant or your information or whatever it is, that when you click that on, it's going to instantly show you something you like.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be the same thing for either one of us. You'll say, did you see that ad on baseball? No, I saw one on this guitar or whatever.
Well,
they kind of do that now, but it's going to be so instantaneous. I guess that's the word I was trying to get to. It's going to be developed to where it's instantaneous. It's not going to be this kind of labored thing where you got to kind of move it out of the way to get to what you're looking for. It's just going to be poof. It's going to be, like you said, Minority Report. It's just going to pop up and you have to knock it out of the way. And there's been movies where they show the guy holding up like the clear little piece of acrylic or whatever, but it's a phone, it's a computer, it's a medical, it's a doctor, it's all this stuff. I could definitely see some things like that. So it won't be, to me, it's like it's not going to be this huge shift in stuff around us so much as it's going to be kind of like everything's going to end up in one or two little kinds of devices, and the only next step from that would be an implant or the AR glasses with the augmented reality, because then you could see, you get your heads-up display in some of your cars. This could be your navigation. Turn here, and it's you're following like a horse with blinders. I kind of see it as information is the future, the big jump, and it's going to be pretty quick.
And I would say, the difference between say 2005 and 2025 is pretty extreme as far as that goes. The technology, the availability, you pick up your phone and you've got everything there, and so even 20 years from now, let alone 100, is going to be, I don't know that we can even really accurately, predict 20 years down, because if you combine the quantum computing power that they're developing now, and they say that they can do, a billion years worth of regular computing in a few seconds with the quantum computing, and then you've got AI, and you've got the merging of the biological and the mechanical, like the Neuralink, right? That everybody has technology here,
I think
but
the
if
big
you
jump there
have
could
it
be
with you,
the big jump there too could be like somebody's paraplegic, and it would be something in their spine to help them walk again. Because the thing about paraplegics, most of the time, it's because the nerves got severed, and there'll be a way to restore that pathway, and that's really all it takes. And once that happens, they can begin to work out and get that atrophy done, get rid of it, and get the muscle back, or they have these exoskeletons and stuff like that.
Right.
But I really see, like you said, so your phone right now, you have to charge it, you have to hold it, you have to get a subscription, but inside that phone is everything in your life: your credit, your money, your banking, ordering food, political stuff you want to read,
connections with loved ones,
religious stuff, connections with loved ones, all your communication. You're putting all your, I don't mean faith, quote unquote, I just mean faith in general. Like, you're putting all your trust in your device. Oh man, I lost my phone, I'm screwed. Of course you're screwed.
How many
you don't
people
remember
panicked?
a phone number? You don't remember an address. You don't remember how to get anywhere because you're using navigation. You said something to somebody you don't want anybody else to read, or somebody sent you something they don't want you to show anybody else. It's all secrets, life, death, love, hate, everything wrapped up in this little handheld device. And at some point, they'll figure out a way to go from your palm of your hand to your wrist, and from your wrist to your head, and from your head right into your brain.
Sure.
But maybe the jump will be that they won't need the implant, because we talk about frequency and we talk about all these other things. Somebody's going to figure that out with all this computing power. They're going to go, aha, dial it in. There you go. Now he's doing what I want and listening to what I want him to hear.
But if the Neuralink takes off and people become exponentially smarter, more capable, the people that choose not to do that, which I'm sure there's be a lot, they won't have that same advantage. And somebody,
it would, I guess, it'd be a more cumbersome way to get to.
They can create that gap.
It's already happening
between the haves and have-nots, even
definitely
more,
already
wider.
happening.
Yeah.
And it's like it won't be that there's a gatekeeper necessarily, but it's like, well, you didn't take the implant, so you have to pay $395 a month to get the info the same way you used to.
Right.
If you got the Neuralink, it's only $10. Well, okay, I guess I'll take it. And then you have those implications of like the religious part of it, where people think mark of the beast. You put this thing on your skin. That's the way to get your food. That's the way to claim your allegiance, to vote, to eat, to get entered in somewhere. It's like it is that, but it isn't that. But it's this big, huge jump to where it's just it's going to wrap all of that stuff into a ball, and it's just, you're not going to have to hold it in your hand anymore.
Right.
Whether
you won't be able to forget it.
Whether it's a table in the middle of the living room that has a floating orb that says, "Welcome home. What would you like for dinner? Would you like to see the latest news based on your preferences?" You know what I mean? Like, you won't have to argue about who watches NBC or Fox or CNN and these things. One thing I do need to say is, I said Mark J. Price. That's the guy that wrote the article. The kid that wrote the poem, I want to give credit.
Yeah.
Vivian Galkey. She was in the 8th grade at Franklin School in Wausau, Wisconsin, and she wrote that poem for a class assignment in 1925. So something that hit me when she said, "How will the world look a century from now? I have seen it in crystallized glass."
So you're just saying, you come home, their orb welcomes you.
Yep.
What would you like for dinner?
It's a little crystal pendant that you can wear, and it will have all of the information of the frickin' Library of Congress on it. Anything you need to look up, and you'll just drop that in your machine. And the machine can replicate that into something, a receiver of some sort that you can have, not just 300 feet of Wi-Fi or 30 feet of Wi-Fi, but like you can just go anywhere in the world and it'll be a network.
But I think eventually it'll be something that you won't have to remember to take with you, that you could possibly forget. It will be on your person.
Or you'll have a way to access it somehow. And I think there's going to be, I know this sounds wacky to think that there would be, but I think the days of relying on satellites it gets beamed from Earth up to the satellites to other parts of the Earth, other parts of the country, other parts of the world. Those days are going to dwindle, because they know we brought this up before, all the space junk. At some point, somebody's going to go, we don't even need to do that anymore, guys. We have this other way to do it, and it's going to be something ancient, something of the Earth, something with frequencies. Something
well, if they hadn't killed Tesla, we would have it already. I'm
just saying, somebody's going to take crystal technology and they're going to make a network that doesn't need cellular towers. It doesn't need. It's just gonna it's gonna work. It's gonna be a beam that gets uninterrupted by anything, and it's gonna go. You're gonna have one at your place. I'm gonna have one at my place, and it's gonna beam that info, and that's gonna create this network that like you said, and I can wear it on a ring. I can have an earring with it. I can have it on a necklace. It's going to be something like that. But before we get to that, I think there's just going to be a really big jump in how fast we get information. That's always rapidly increasing. Like you said, I mean, you really hit home when you said 2005 to 2025.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a huge jump. Huge
20
jump.
years.
It's not going to be
let
a 20.
alone
You're
100.
not going to have to wait 20
Yeah.
to get that next jump. It's going to be, right now we're in a bit of a jump with these computers. The AI thing, you know, I wasn't thinking about it until somebody said it. There's this component of AI that's funny. It's like these companies, different companies make their own AIs. And they still have a way to inject things into those AIs.
Mm.
There's like, one guy was saying they asked AI to show me a Nazi soldier.
Right.
And the Nazi soldiers were black, brown,
Right.
Indian. It's like, no, that's obviously something being
Right.
programmed into there for that to give you that. Because if it was
Sure.
actually looking up historical documents, it would have given you the German soldiers and
Right.
showed you the German soldiers. Like,
Right.
if I look up on the internet and I look up show me Nazis, it's going to show me Nazis. It's not going to give me back this weird version of it. Like, nah, somebody's playing with that, with the filters, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the part of it. That's the monetized part where somebody says, if I do this, I'll appeal to a bigger audience and they'll pay.
He who controls the knowledge controls
That's it.
the world.
That's it. That's
Or she.
That's what I was saying about, in some ways, I could care less who has info on me, but in other ways, like, that's the currency. The information is the currency.
Sure.
It doesn't matter if our dollar is paper, backed by gold, Bitcoin, or whatever. If it has value and somebody claims it has value, then that's what we spend with.
As long as we all agree.
And then we spend with it, then that's fine. But the other, the sort of open secret currency is the knowledge of what you're going to buy with that money. That's way more expensive, because now I can fine tune it and tailor it to your experience when you open that phone, that app, you know, that program, whatever. And they're constantly looking at ways to squeeze that into anything. And at some point, you know, like sometimes when you sign up for something and it says, well, you're paying $30 a month for this with ads. For another $6, you can get rid of ads.
Mm-hmm.
The headache, you're like, okay, they can bombard you until you just give in and pay the $6, right? But it's going to be like that when you just wake up in the morning, like the Minority Report thing. You're just going to wake up and go, good morning, brought to you by Hostess.
Yeah.
You know what?
Right.
Candy my wife set the Alexa in the kitchen. We have the little one with the TV, and it does a morning roundup thing at 7 a.m. every day. Good morning. Today's weather is this. The news headlines are this. And here's what's on your, whatever she selected for her favorites or whatever. Just a quick little thing. And it's going to be like that, but it's going to be like, good morning. This good morning was brought to you by
Pfizer.
the great people at Pfizer. Did you get your flu shot today? You know, whatever. And then it's just going to be like the whole fucking day. Like they made these jokes in all these movies, like fucking Back to the Future 2 and 3 and all these other movies. Minority Report had stuff. And
the personalized billboards as that person's coming by, scans
exactly
you,
it.
and you're walking by, and there's an ad for you specifically, calls you out.
Yep.
I think there's an airport I seen.
What was the movie with Jim Carrey with the cameras? They filmed every moment of his life.
Oh, the Truman Show.
That's gonna be that's what the drones are, man. They're gonna be like those light up billboards. You'll have like your glasses on, and then you'll look and you'll be like, it just said steak dinner because it knew I'm hungry.
Yeah.
But this person over here sees for the football game tonight on Amazon or whatever.
Right.
It's like,
right.
it's not gonna be any more of this one stop. It's gonna be the guy that's gonna make. So I say, put your money in the chips. Find who's making the chips. Who's making the technology chips? Who's making the implants? Put some money in all that. I'm not saying put all your money in it. Just put a little bit of money in all that, and then see where you're at 10 years from now. You won't have to wait long.
You would like to think that knowledge would be the great equalizer, right? Once everybody has access to the same information, but it's
what's it cost to get your access,
or what do people do with that knowledge? Some people just don't do anything with the knowledge.
Right.
They don't. You have a varying level of interest in that.
It's like if you have a pizza place. And most of your sit-down pizza restaurants don't sell by the slice. Mm-hmm. They sell you the whole pizza. So if you eat 2 pieces or if you eat 5, or if 3 people sit down with you, the $25 pizza is always a $25 pizza. So let's say the pizza's the knowledge.
Yeah.
When you sit down to eat, they could give a shit if you eat the crust or the whole piece. You're paying the $25. And there's gonna be these gatekeepers. They're gonna keep tweaking it to their own uses. I mean, I could just see at some point, like, anything entertaining of any sort is going to cost you some kind of fee, and it's going to get you back to where you are playing outside sports with the kids and board games and stuff.
I hope so. I hope so.
You guys ruined it.
I hope there's a big turn towards real life interactions, real life events, it's not the virtual.
It's very useful, but you fucking monetized it all and you ruined it. You got in the middle of religious beliefs, politics, what we eat. You try to tell us how to exercise, our health, all this different stuff. Our mental stability is all over the fucking place. And at some point, there's going to be just a huge swath of people that say, enough's enough. I'll still have the device because I still need to do certain things on it. But, man, I'm putting it in the drawer, and Saturday we're going for a hike.
Mm-hmm. I hope so.
I'm not staying on the couch.
There's a big trend to that.
Yeah. I could use the views on my content, but,
hey, after you watch this, comment, like, subscribe, then go outside and play.
Then go outside for your hike, But, no, I just think and I hate using the term, like, people say people these days and kids these days. I'm like, no, it's not necessarily these days and kids these days. It's just people that are where they are in time. Yeah. This is what's available to them. And when you come from a different time where you've had these jumps in technology and stuff, I can remember in junior high school learning computer programming, and it was like super basic. We had to make like a hot air balloon game or something. It was really stupid, simple stuff that now we're so far beyond that in 35 years. And
I remember the computer class, and some of the sentiment was like, this is kind of a fad, really have to take it seriously because these will only be around for a little bit, and then, it'll go by the wayside.
And people older than us didn't have to learn that, didn't know anything about it, didn't want anything to do with it. Some people embrace the change, some people resist the change. That's probably a good place to end it right there. Was, in spite of these predictions, only a few seeming true, there's going to be a moment where we have to decide what we want to embrace and what we want to fight or rebel against. And it's going to come like so much faster for each generation. Yeah. For us, maybe 20 years. For the next group, for our kids, maybe 10. For their kids, maybe 5. And then it's going to be like every 2 years, every other year, there's going to be this huge jump. It's going to be like Apple coming out with their new product every fall. It's going to be this new leap. Because, like, I hope that somebody at some point sees the hokiness in AI. AI is going to get so good that it's going to fool everybody. But at some point, I hope everybody sees that it's like, get that out of there. It's not human. Let's just get back to the human touch or whatever. But I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Go watch George Orwell, 1984.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes open.
Yeah. Keep your eyes open, folks, and fight the fear.
Absolutely.
And
thank you.
I think what happened was we drank these mind erasers, and I forgot what we were talking about. But
yeah, comment what you think life's going to be like in 100 years.
That's right. Let us know.
See you.
Peace.